Welcome to this American English Masterclass. Today you'll learn what makes English sound like American English. You'll learn natural American English phrases. You'll shadow American English speakers to improve your listening and pronunciation. And you'll learn about American culture, which greatly impacts the language. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. The one thing that makes English sound American is the expressions we use. Today you'll learn 50 expressions that Americans commonly use in professional and everyday situations. I'm sure every day you say, "I need help." Let me share some other ways that I say this and you can too. You can say, "Could you walk me through?" and then whatever you're struggling with. For example, how to export this document. So notice here, the expression is to walk someone. Could you walk me through something? How to export this document. Now, to walk someone through something means to explain in detail, to show step by step.
Could you walk me through it?
You could also say, any chance you know how to export this document. So here, notice I'm saying any chance. That is in spoken English. The full grammatical structure is there any chance? But in spoken English, we generally drop the is there and just say any chance. Any chance you know how to do something. Or you can say, would you mind? Notice you need the gerund. Would you mind showing me how to export this document? Let's try this right now. Would you mind commenting, let's go, let's go, let's go in the comments, because it would really help me. And this is another way of saying, I need help. Would you mind? Would you mind commenting? Let's go in the comments. I love this one. Do you have a sec? A sec is short for second, so a short period of time. Do you have a sec to help me out? So notice I'm using to help me out. And then if you want to specify the something, you can say with this document. So let's try this one too. Do you have a sec to help me out by liking this video? It will only take a second, so like this video. And don't worry about taking notes because I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. I'm sure every day you say, I don't understand. You can say, I don't get. I don't get, and then how to export this document if you want to use that. Get means understand in this context. This is a great one. I'm having trouble. This is in the present continuous because it's taking place now. This is a gerund expression. I'm having trouble exporting the document. You can also use the preposition with. I'm having trouble with, and then something, a noun. I'm having trouble with the document.
I'm still having trouble with English.
How about this one? I'm not entirely clear on how to export this document. So notice, entirely intensifies it. I'm not entirely clear on how to export this document. Or you can simply say, I'm struggling. Again, in the present continuous, it's happening now. I'm struggling, infinitive. I'm struggling to understand this, whatever that is. Every day you probably say, I need more time. You can also say, I'm not going to make the deadline. Native speakers love using make as a replacement to achieve or obtain. In this case, achieve the deadline. I'm not going to make the deadline. You could say, we need to push back, which means postpone the deadline. So you can use the phrasal verb push back, or you can use the verb postpone. You can say, I'm running behind. Now you run behind on something. I'm running behind on the project. Again, the present continuous is taking place now. How about this one? We need to buy some time with the client. Do you know what this means? Buy some time. This is like saying we need to stall or delay the client so we can create more time. That's buying more time. You create the time.
I just needed to buy some time.
I'm sure every day you say, I'm really busy. You can say that. You can also say, I'm swamped. Notice that pronunciation, that ED is a soft T. I'm swamped. And you need the verb to be. It's to be swamped. I am swamped right now. I was swamped yesterday. Now you can continue on and say with the project or because of. If you use because, you also need that preposition of. I'm swamped because of the project. You can say the project is taking up all my time. So here, the phrasal verb to take up means to consume, use, or occupy, and notice it's in the present continuous because it's taking place now. I love this one. My schedule or my calendar is jam-packed this week. Natives love saying this, jam-packed. And notice that packed, a soft T at the end, packed. Now the jam is optional. You can simply say packed, which means very busy. Adding jam makes it sound more natural and also intensifies it.
Well, her schedule is pretty packed.
You can say things are really hectic right now. So simply using hectic instead of busy to give you a more advanced alternative. Repeat after me, hectic, hectic. And you can modify that by saying really hectic right now. I'm sure every day you say, what's your opinion? You can say, what's your take on this? Now, if the topic is obvious, you can just say, oh, I think AI is a really positive development. What's your take? Or you can simply add, what's your take on this being the topic of AI.
What is your take on this?
To sound a little more advanced and professional, you can say, what's your perspective? What's your view, point of view, or viewpoint? So many different alternatives. And again, you can say on this or not. It's optional. You could say more casually, how do you see this? I see this as being a positive thing, but what about you? How do you see this? Now, to answer, just remember those preposition differences because you would say in my opinion, or you would say from my perspective, from my viewpoint. So get those prepositions right. Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson. Now every day you might say, especially if you're a parent, that's not a good idea. You can say, I'm not sure about that. This is a more indirect, it adds some doubt around it. And you can also say, I'm not too sure about that to make it sound less severe, more indirect. In a more professional setting, you can say, I have some concerns about something, about the conference, or you could say, I have some reservations, or I have some doubts about the conference. You can ask someone, have you thought about? Have you thought about? This is a gerund expression. Have you thought about canceling the conference? I have some reservations about the attendance. Or you can say, before we move forward, which means before we take action, before we move forward, we need to consider, and then something. We need to consider the cost. Hopefully every day you're presented with great ideas and you can say, that's a great idea. Instead, you can say, I can get behind that idea. Now, to get behind something means that you support it. This is a very natural expression. You can say to someone, you're really on to something. If someone is on to something, it means they're moving in the right direction. They're making progress.
I really think you're onto something here.
Or you can say, that's spot on, that's spot on. Simply, you can say 100%. Now notice native speakers pronounce this as 100, not 100%. It's unstressed, 100%. Native speakers love simply replying with 100%. This is the same as that's spot on, 100%. This means that's completely correct, accurate, or I completely agree. You work every day and there are meetings taking place every day. So you might say or hear, let's meet to discuss this. Instead, you can ask, are you free to go over this? So to go over something means to review it. And when you review something, you generally discuss it as well. Now, you could also say, when are you free? When are you free? So you're asking for a specific date. You can ask, can we touch base on this soon? So if you touch base on something, it means you discuss it. You connect with someone to discuss something specific. You can be very specific and say, does Monday at 11 a.m. work for you? Now you can include the topic and say work for you to discuss this if you want, but that's optional. Or you can simply say, let's set aside some time. If you set aside time, it means you allocate it, you reserve it. Let's set aside some time to iron out the details. To iron out is a great phrasal verb. It means to finalize or to resolve if things are in a state of uncertainty or conflict even.
Yeah, just ironing out the last details.
Now I'm sure you say, let's start every day. Let's start the project. Let's start making dinner, whatever it is. Instead, you can say, let's get the ball rolling. So to get the ball rolling is an idiom that means to start. This is another common idiom, let's hit the ground running. Now, if you hit the ground running, it means you start, but you start with a lot of enthusiasm and energy, so it's a very positive idiom. Or you can simply say, let's do it, let's do it. So someone might ask you, should we start dinner now? And instead of saying, let's start, you can say, let's do it.
Let's do it, E. Let's do it.
Or you can say, let's get going, let's get moving, let's get cracking. So notice you use get for all three of these options, and then the next verb is in the ing form. Or you can use something that will make you sound very natural in a fun, casual way. You can say, it's go time, which means it's time to start. Every day you may need to cancel plans and say, I can't attend the meeting, the conference, the party, the appointment, whatever it is. Instead, you can say, I can't make. Remember that verb make? In this case, it means attend. I can't make the meeting. Or natives love saying, oh, I can't make it. It representing the meeting or the party or the appointment. You can say, sorry, I have a scheduling conflict. So this means you have another appointment or meeting at the exact same time.
It was an unavoidable scheduling conflict.
Or you can say, sorry, I'm already booked, which again means you have another meeting at the exact same time. You can say, unfortunately, I have another commitment. That is a more formal and professional way of saying, sorry, I can't make it. Or you can simply state, I'm not free, I'm not available at that time. And you can be specific about the time as well. Instead of saying, they work well together, you can say, they have a strong rapport. Notice that T is silent. They have a strong rapport or strong relationship. You can say they're close-knit. Notice the K is silent. Close-knit. And you need the verb to be. They're close-knit. Or you can use close-knit as an adjective and say they're a team, a close-knit team. You could use a different noun. You could say they're a close-knit family, they're a close-knit group of friends, for example.
These are close-knit communities.
Or you can say they have a positive working relationship, they have a supportive working relationship. You can also say they complement each other. If two things complement each other, it means they go well together, like cookies and a glass of milk. They complement each other. So two people can go well together, they complement each other. Think of everything you've learned. Another thing that makes English sound American is phrasal verbs. American speakers love using phrasal verbs. Now you'll learn 16 phrasal verbs you can start using today. First, let's review the category of socializing and small talk. So imagine a native speaker walked up to you and said, "When did you take up yoga?" What's the phrasal verb here? When did you take up yoga? To take something up, this is the phrasal verb, and it means to start an activity. And you start it as a regular routine. So you don't just do yoga once. It sounds like you're going to do yoga every week or twice a week. Now remember, your phrasal verb is take up, but you need to conjugate that according to the subject and time reference. So maybe you could say, I've been thinking about, so about is a preposition. I've been thinking about taking up tennis again this summer. So starting tennis as a regular activity.
Honey, when did Peter Griffin take up jogging?
Or maybe someone says to you, don't take up the negative imperative. Don't take up another activity unless you have time for it. That's good advice.
I could take up yoga.
You have the body type.
Or maybe you're thinking, thankfully I found Jennifer's channel shortly after I took up learning English. Is that something that you're thinking? If it is, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. Now let's say you're talking to your coworker and you say, he always brings up politics at work. What's the phrasal verb here? To bring something up. This means to start talking about a topic. Maybe you can say, can we not bring up that topic at dinner tonight? So this is a way of asking to not discuss something. Can we not bring that up?
So stop bringing it up. It's not fair.
Or maybe you say, he keeps bringing up her trip. He's clearly impressed. He keeps talking about it.
Thanks, Wally, for bringing that up.
Let's review this sentence and where is the phrasal verb? She really got along with my cousin. Do you know this one? And notice sometimes phrasal verbs have two prepositions. So the phrasal verb here is to get along with someone. And this means to have a good relationship with someone. So you could ask, are you getting along with your new coworkers? Or maybe they would get along better if they communicated more. So notice that conditional structure, and would is a modal verb, and that's why you have the base verb following it. They would get along.
What is it? You two don't get along?
We get along just fine.
Now maybe your friend says to you, you'll never guess who I ran into today. This is a must-know phrasal verb. Do you know it? To run into someone. This means to meet someone but by chance. So you weren't planning on seeing that person.
It's nice to run into you.
You could say, if I run into her again, I'll say hi this time. So if I see her again, but by chance. Or maybe I'll ask her for her phone number.
See, I ran into her at Target.
Or how about this one? I haven't run into anyone I know since I moved back home. So putting it in the negative means you're out in the world, getting groceries, going to the bank, but you haven't seen anyone you know. You haven't run into anyone. Now let's move on and imagine you're at a cafe, and let's review some common phrasal verbs. Maybe you go to order something and they say, sorry, we sold out of chocolate donuts. And you really wanted a chocolate donut. What's the phrasal verb here? Well, it's to sell out of something. So your verb is sell, and that's what you conjugate. And this means to have no more of something to sell to someone. So you could ask, do you think they'll sell out of those donuts again tomorrow?
They just sold out.
Already?
Or maybe, we're about to sell out, so grab one while you can. Now notice here the noun wasn't specified. We're about to sell out. If you specify the noun, that's when you add the additional preposition. We're about to sell out of donuts.
Sold out.
So they sold out of donuts, and you can say, I should cut back on sugar anyway. What's the phrasal verb here? To cut back on something. So notice again, we have that additional preposition on if you specify the something.
I think we need to cut back on our spending.
And if you cut back on something, you reduce the amount of something. So you could say, I've been cutting back on coffee lately. This is the present perfect continuous because it started in the past, maybe last Monday or last month, and it continues until now. I've been cutting back on coffee lately. It was giving me the jitters. This is the jitters. So this is why you need to cut back, reduce the amount. Or someone says to you, if you want to lose weight, I suggest cutting back on carbs. So reducing the amount of carbs. Now notice after suggest, you can use a gerund. I suggest cutting back on carbs.
We're not cutting back on food. Anything else?
Now you're still at the cafe and they say to you, we're trying out a new sugar-free cookie recipe. What's the phrasal verb here? To try out. This means to use or test something to see if it works well. For example, let's try out their new seasonal latte next time. Well, in this case, working well means you either like the taste of it or you don't like the taste of it, but you'll never know until you try it out.
Have you ever tried it out?
Or you can say after you try out the new blender, after you see how the blender works, let me know your thoughts. Was it a good blender, a bad one? Should I buy one? Do you recommend it? Let me know your thoughts. We're still at a cafe and you say to your friend, you only picked at your cookie. You don't like it? So the phrasal verb is to pick at, to pick at. If you pick at your cookie, it means you only eat a small amount of it. So we use this with food specifically. She picked at her salad, but barely touched the rest of her meal. So she ate a small amount of the salad. Maybe she didn't like it, or maybe she wasn't feeling well, she wasn't hungry. Who knows the reason? Or you can say, I was in a Zoom meeting over lunch and could only pick at my sandwich. Because you're on camera, you don't want to eat a big sandwich, so you just try to take a little bite whenever you can.
No, thank you. I'll just pick at yours.
Let's talk about phrasal verbs you can use with meetings and appointments. Someone could ask you, can we set up a meeting for next week? The phrasal verb here is to set up. And of course, this means to schedule or arrange. You can say, I'll be setting up a few interviews this afternoon.
The interview's already set up.
Or you can ask, did you already set up the call with the designer? Did you schedule the call? Did you set it up?
Set up a meeting.
Or if someone asks you, please follow up with us next week. This is a must-know phrasal verb. It's to follow up. Now you can continue on and say with someone on or about something. So if you specify the reason why, you can use a preposition on or about. It doesn't matter which one you use, and native speakers use both equally. Now this means to continue a previous conversation. For example, I was supposed to follow up yesterday, but I forgot. I was supposed to call you to discuss something we previously discussed. Now remember, you can also say, I was supposed to follow up with you on the report or about the report yesterday, but I forgot.
Well, I'm just following up on a chat room message.
Or you can say, it's been 3 days and they haven't responded. Should I follow up or should I wait? So should I continue that discussion we previously had? Or should I wait?
It's too soon.
Maybe your boss asks you, have you checked in with the client yet? What's the phrasal verb here? It's to check in with someone, and again, you can use on or about something. This means to contact someone, and you're doing that to make sure there are no problems. For example, don't forget to check in with them, maybe it's the clients or your team, before you go on vacation. So contact them to make sure they understand everything, they can access everything, there are no problems. Now again, remember, you can say don't forget to check in with them on the invoice or about the invoice before you go on vacation. Contact them to make sure there are no problems with the invoice.
If anyone finds anything, check in with me.
Let's review this sentence. My boss checks in with me every hour. It's annoying. We often use this with frustration because your boss contacts you every hour to make sure there are no problems.
Check back in with me in July.
Now remember that phrasal verbs have different meanings depending on context. So if you're at a hotel and someone says, don't forget to check in before noon.
Checking in.
Yeah, we're checking in.
This means register your arrival at a hotel. But if you're in a meeting and someone says, don't forget to check in before noon, it means to contact someone to make sure there are no issues. So you have to understand the context to know the meaning of phrasal verbs. How about this sentence? I blocked off an hour for our meeting. What's the phrasal verb? To block off. And this means to reserve time in your schedule. So someone might ask, should we block off some time on Friday? Should we reserve some time? Or you can say, I'm blocking off tomorrow afternoon to catch up on emails. So in your calendar, no one will be able to schedule time with you because you blocked it off.
I will block off the afternoon.
Now let's talk about giving compliments. How about this sentence? That outfit really brings out your eyes.
Brown one brings out your eyes.
What's the phrasal verb here? To bring out. Now remember, we previously learned to bring up. So also notice that changing the preposition can completely change the meaning. So here, to bring out, it means to emphasize, highlight, or make something more noticeable or attractive. So I could say to you as a compliment, words of praise, encouragement, support, great choice. That frame brings out the colors in the photo. Or I can say your confidence is starting to bring out the best in your team. So it's highlighting, emphasizing the best qualities. Let's review this sentence. I want to point out how well you handled that irate customer. What's an irate customer? An angry customer, an upset customer. And what's the phrasal verb here? To point out. This means to bring attention to something. For example, you've been doing such a great job lately, and I just wanted to point that out. I wanted to point that out. I wanted to emphasize that. So that would be a very nice thing to say to someone or say in a meeting to someone as well.
Thank you, Amy, for pointing that out.
You're so welcome.
Or you could say, I appreciated that you pointed out how much my design skills have improved. So you can offer this as words of appreciation to someone. What's the phrasal verb in this sentence? Who came up with this great idea? So the phrasal verb is To come up with. And again, if you specify the noun, the something, you need that additional preposition with to come up with something. And this means to create or suggest an idea or plan. You're going to come up with something brilliant again, I know it. So you can offer that as words of encouragement to someone.
That's good. Who came up with that?
Or I can't believe you came up with that slogan on the spot. So on the spot means instantly. That's incredible. This next phrasal verb is a very positive thing to say to someone. You've really stepped up lately.
Thanks for stepping up today.
The phrasal verb is to step up. This means to take on more responsibility, or it can mean to improve one's performance.
I'm thinking about stepping it up.
So your boss might say, I noticed how you stepped up when the deadline was moved. I just wanted to point out the great leadership you showed. Or you can say, she's been stepping up in every way since Peter quit. So maybe she had to take on more responsibility because Peter quit, or she improved her performance because Peter quit, but she really stepped up. Amazing job! Now that you've expanded your vocabulary, you're ready to study Native American speakers to improve your listening skills and pronunciation. Plus, you'll learn vocabulary and grammar naturally. And nobody is more American than President Barack Obama. Here's the first listening exercise. You need to complete the missing words. Let's listen 3 times.
I've ordered every federal agency to eliminate rules that don't make sense. I've ordered every federal agency to eliminate rules that don't make sense. I've ordered every federal agency to eliminate rules that don't make sense.
Did you complete the sentence? He said, I've ordered every federal agency to eliminate rules that don't make sense. Now let's take a look at I've. This is a contraction of I have. So we say it as one word, I've. And it's a very unstressed pronunciation. Repeat after me, I've. I've ordered. So notice this ED here is just a soft D. Ordered. Repeat after me, ordered. I've ordered every federal agency to eliminate. Now here, a lot of native speakers will pronounce to when it's a preposition or part of the infinitive like it is here as a very unstressed to eliminate, Repeat after me, to eliminate. But Barack Obama does not do that here. He pronounces the full to. So to is the standard pronunciation and ta is the unstressed pronunciation that's commonly used by natives in natural speech, which is why it can be difficult for you to understand us. Now let's look at don't make sense, because he didn't pronounce those final voiced sounds, specifically the T, don't. Notice he didn't say don't, he just said don't. And then make, you didn't hear that k, it was just make. And that makes the pronunciation smoother, which is why it sounds like we're talking very fast. Now, let's move on and talk about the word eliminate. Grammatically, you use eliminate plus a noun or a gerund because you eliminate something. And this means to completely remove or get rid of. Remember this. It might help you in the future of this lesson, get rid of. So for example, we eliminated plastic bags. This is the something, the noun. If you wanted to use a verb, remember it's the gerund. We eliminated using plastic bags. Or you might say, Jennifer helps me eliminate my mistakes, the noun. Or you could say, these lessons help me eliminate my mistakes. Again, the noun. So do you agree with that? If you do, put that's right in the comments. Now let's continue on with the speech. So you need to complete the missing word. You'll hear it 3 times.
We've already announced over 500 reforms. We've already announced over 500 reforms. We've already announced over 500 reforms.
How'd you do with this one? He said, we've already announced over 500 reforms. So notice another contraction. We've is a contraction of we have. Repeat after me, we've. We've already announced, we have already announced. What's the grammar here? What verb tense is this? It's the present perfect, and it's being used because this is a completed past action. The 500 reforms, that's complete, that's done. But this is an ongoing time reference. So it's possible to announce more reforms. At 500, it can increase and be 505 or 510 in the future because it's ongoing. Now let's talk about the word over. Over 500 reforms. So how many reforms? Well, we know it was more than 500, but we don't know the exact amount because when you say over or more than 500, it might be 501 or it might be 525. We don't know because it's unspecified, but it's more than. Over 500. Let's keep going. You need to complete the missing words. You'll hear it 3 times.
And just a fraction of them will save business and citizens more than $10 billion over the next 5 years. And just a fraction of them will save business and citizens more than $10 billion over the next 5 years. And just a fraction of them will save business and citizens more than $10 billion over the next 5 years.
Did you complete the sentence? He said, and just a fraction of them will save business and citizens more than $10 billion over the next 5 years. Let's talk about a fraction of them. A fraction of means a small number or a small portion of them. In this case, the reforms. You could say, I know 100 phrasal verbs. That sounds amazing, right? 100 phrasal verbs. But then if you add, but that's just a fraction of them. Them is the phrasal verbs. It represents the phrasal verbs. But if you say a fraction of, it means a small number or a small portion. So even though 100 sounds large, it doesn't sound very large compared to how many phrasal verbs there are. Let's talk about the pronunciation of them, because there's a strong pronunciation, which is them, but there's also a weak and unstressed pronunciation, them. So it's just that vowel sound that sounds more relaxed and unstressed. This is another reason why native speakers can be difficult to understand, because there are these differences in pronunciation, especially in natural spoken English, which Barack Obama, even though he's the president at this time and he's giving a formal speech, he still is a native speaker. So of course he's going to use natural pronunciation patterns. Now let's look at over the next 5 years. The word over represents between now and 5 years from now. So that time frame is over. You could say, I learned a lot of phrasal verbs over the weekend. So that means the entire time reference from start to finish, and that time reference is the weekend. This is very commonly used in daily speech. You could say, we discussed how to improve our speaking skills over coffee. So you can do something over coffee, over dinner. And that means while we were having coffee. So your coffee has a time reference, a time when you started coffee and a time when you ended coffee. And that period of time is over coffee. Let's continue on with the speech. This is a longer section and there are 2 parts to complete. You'll hear it 3 times.
We got rid of one rule from 40 years ago that could have forced some dairy farmers to spend $10,000 a year proving that they could contain a spill. We got rid of one rule from 40 years ago that could have forced some dairy farmers to spend $10,000 a year proving that they could contain a spill. We got rid of one rule from 40 years ago that could have forced some dairy farmers to spend $10,000 a year proving that they could contain a spill.
Did you hear all the missing words? He said, we got rid of, remember, I told you to remember that, we got rid of one rule from 40 years ago that could have forced some dairy farmers to spend $10,000 a year proving that they could contain a spill. Got rid of, let's talk about the pronunciation here. We're going to use connected speech where we take individual words and it sounds like one word. So I'm going to say got rid of. So notice at the end, you can take the word of and you can make it an unstressed sound and say duh. So instead of but we're taking that D sound from rid. Got rid of or got rid of. Dove. Dove is the full sound and duh is the unstressed. And remember that to get rid of means eliminate. We already talked about that. Now let's take a look at could have, because we have the auxiliary verb have, but you can also turn this into an unstressed of. And the same rule applies. You can use duh and say coulda, or you can use dove and say could've, because you're taking that D from could. Coulda, could've. What about this sentence? We could have eliminated the rule. This sentence is grammatically incorrect because the correct sentence is we could have eliminated the rule. Remember that these pronunciation changes, changing have to of, only applies to spoken English. It doesn't apply to written English. So you can verbally say coulda, but in writing, it's considered grammatically incorrect. Let's keep going. Here's the next sentence to complete. You'll hear it 3 times.
Because milk was somehow classified as an oil. Because milk was somehow classified as an oil. Because milk was somehow classified as an oil.
Did you get this one? He said because milk was somehow classified as an oil. I found his pronunciation was quite clear. Do you agree with me here? So let's just look at some vocabulary. Let's look at classified as. To be classified as is the full structure you need, and classified means categorized or designated as something. So you could say phrasal verbs are classified as advanced. You need that word as something, as advanced. Now let's review somehow. In this context, it means that the reasoning or the method, it isn't obvious or it's difficult to understand. So how could milk be classified as oil? That's difficult to understand. So that's why they use somehow. You can use this in your daily speech. You can say, she somehow got the promotion. So just by adding that word somehow, you're questioning why or how she got the promotion. So it takes a statement that sounds positive, she got the promotion, and it actually turns it into more of a negative statement by saying she somehow got the promotion. Now it's the fun part. You're going to hear President Barack Obama make a joke. So you need to complete the missing words and you need to understand why this is funny. Let's see if you can do that. You'll hear it 3 times.
With a rule like that, I guess it was worth crying over spilled milk. With a rule like that, I guess it was worth crying over spilled milk. With a rule like that, I guess it was worth crying over spilled milk.
So, did you complete the missing words? Did you hear the joke? Did you understand the joke? If you did, your English is excellent. He said, with a rule like that, I guess it was worth crying over spilled milk. Before we talk about why this is funny, let's review some pronunciation points. So first, let's take a look at rule. Notice here there are two sounds. We have rule, so that dark L, rule, rule. So if I pronounce this fully, you hear those two sounds, rule. In a more unstressed pronunciation, it won't be as obvious, rule, ool. It's there, but it's very quick, rule, rule. But it is best to make sure you have those two sounds. Now let's take a look at spilled, because there's a difference between British and American English. In American English, we only use the word spilled, spilled. In British English, there's an alternative word that's spelled differently because it's spelled with a T and it's pronounced that way. So it's just the end. In American English, it's always spilled, a soft D, but in British English, it's spilt, spilt. So you might hear spilled, you might hear spilt, but those final sounds aren't pronounced fully in spoken English in both British and American English. Just like in here, you didn't hear the end sound for the word that. It was more of a that. So you just don't press out that final T, that. And milk sounded like milk. So did you hear that the final K sound, that K, was not pronounced? It was just a milk, milk. So you put your tongue in the position of a K, milk, but you just don't push out that sound. Milk, milk. All right, now let's talk about the joke. The style of this joke is called a pun or a play on words. So it's a humorous use of one word or one phrase that has several meanings or that sounds like another word. In this case, you need to know that there's a proverb in English and perhaps in your culture as well. The proverb is, don't cry over spilled milk. If you don't know what this proverb is, the joke probably wouldn't make sense to you. So this proverb, don't cry over spilled milk, means don't get upset over minor issues or minor mistakes, like spilling a glass of milk. It's not worth getting upset over. So you might say, I made a grammar mistake when I was presenting the report, but you're very upset over this. And your friend, your colleague could say, don't cry over spilled milk. It's a grammar mistake. But notice here, Obama said it was worth crying over spilled milk. So Obama is saying that the farmers should be upset over paying $10,000 a year on something silly like proving they can contain a milk spill. Because remember, milk was somehow classified as an oil. So now you understand the joke. Now let's look at was worth crying. Because grammatically, you need to be worth plus gerund, your verb and ing. You could say, it was worth watching this class. And hopefully you agree with that. Now, grammatically, you could also say something to be worth something. For example, this class was worth it. The it represents something. What is the something? Well, this class was worth watching. So the watching is the it. You're doing such a great job. Shadowing is a powerful way to improve your English, so let's keep going. First, we'll listen to Taylor Swift's commencement speech at NYU. Here's the first listening exercise. You'll hear it 3 times.
No matter how hard you try to avoid being cringe, you will look back on your life and cringe retrospectively. No matter how hard you try to avoid being cringe, you will look back on your life and cringe retrospectively. no matter how hard you try to avoid being cringe, you will look back on your life and cringe retrospectively.
How'd you do? She said, no matter how hard you try to avoid being cringe, you will look back on your life and cringe retrospectively. Let's talk about the grammar, because notice avoid, then you have a gerund verb. Avoid being cringe. And of course, to avoid is to stay away from someone or something because it makes you uncomfortable, perhaps. You could say, I've been avoiding. Notice that present perfect continuous is started in the past and continues until now. I've been avoiding speaking English in public because I'm worried about being cringe. Also notice here, you worry about something, a noun, or doing something, speaking in public, the gerund verb, because about is a preposition. You could say, I'm worried about the exam, or a gerund verb, I'm worried about failing the exam. Now let's talk about that word we've used a lot, cringe. This is colloquial, but very commonly used, and it means to behave in a way that causes embarrassment, awkwardness, or discomfort, either to yourself or others.
Oh my god, it was so cringe, wasn't it?
Okay, that is so cringe. That is so cringe. You just don't do that.
So it makes sense you would want to avoid being cringe. Let's look at to look back on your life. If you look back on something, it means you reflect on it. And in this case, your life. Now let's talk about this and cringe. Do you notice something different perhaps? It's the same word, but in this case, it's a verb. So the verb is to cringe. And this is to feel a strong emotional reaction of embarrassment or awkwardness. And we generally show this physically or visibly. What I just did, that is cringe. I just cringed. Here's a real example for you. I cringe when I look back on, when I reflect on my very first YouTube video, which as you can see is maybe a little cringe. So she uses colloquial language and advanced vocabulary retrospectively in the same sentence. So if you do something retrospectively, it means you think about past events. You could say retrospectively, thinking about past events, I wish I had started speaking English much sooner. Another way to say this is in hindsight or looking back. You could also say looking back on it being the situation in the past. So now you have colloquial and advanced vocabulary. Our next listening exercise, you need to complete the sentence with the missing words. You'll hear it 3 times.
Cringe is unavoidable over a lifetime. Even the term cringe might someday be deemed cringe. Cringe is unavoidable over a lifetime. Even the term cringe might someday be deemed cringe. Cringe is unavoidable over a lifetime. Even the term cringe might someday be deemed cringe.
How'd you do? She said cringe is unavoidable over a lifetime. Even the term cringe might someday be deemed cringe. You've certainly heard the word cringe a lot. So let's look at to be deemed something. This is the same as to be regarded as or judged as. So notice all 3 of these use the verb to be. For example, colloquial language is deemed slang by some, maybe you, but natives use it in daily speech in all situations, which is why it's important to learn the most common colloquial language. Now remember, you can use regarded or judged, but you need that preposition as. Colloquial language is regarded as, judged as slang by some, and the rest is exactly the same. Now notice she used that modal verb, might be deemed. You need your modal plus base verb, which is why we have be, might be deemed. If something might happen, it's saying that it's not certain. There's some doubt. You could say, I might fail, base verb. I might fail my listening exam. That's why these exercises are so important. Our next listening exercise, complete the sentence with the missing words.
You can't avoid it, so don't try to. You can't avoid it, so don't try to. You can't avoid it, so don't try to.
How'd you do? She said, you can't avoid it, so don't try to. Now, what does the it represent in this sentence? The it represents being cringe, because remember, you need that verb in ing. You can use avoid plus noun. You can't avoid the exam, or you use that gerund verb. You talk about the action. You can't avoid taking the exam. I would summarize Taylor's advice to you as embrace being cringe, embrace it. What do you think? Do you agree with that? Put let's go, put let's go in the comments. Now let's move on and listen to Donald Trump respond to a very interesting audience question during the previous presidential debate. And that audience question was, what's one thing you admire about Hillary Clinton? Here are the sentences. You need to complete the missing words. You'll hear it 3 times.
I will say this about Hillary. She doesn't quit. She doesn't give up. I respect that. I tell it like it is. I will say this about Hillary. She doesn't quit. She doesn't give up. I respect that. I tell it like it is. I will say this about Hillary. She doesn't quit. She doesn't give up. I respect that. I tell it like it is.
How did you do? He said, I will say this about Hillary. She doesn't quit. She doesn't give up. I respect that. I tell it like it is. Notice he said, I will. Native speakers will commonly form a contraction and say all. Notice how unstressed that is. All. I'll say this about Hillary. I'll say this. I'll do this. I'll do that. I'll help you. Now this expression, I'll say this about Hillary, this is used to introduce a statement or opinion. Another way of saying this is, here's what I have to say about Hillary. You could say, I'll say this about learning English with native speakers, and then you introduce your opinion. It's a very effective method. Do you think so? If you do, put that's right in the comments. Now let's talk about she doesn't quit, she doesn't give up. So notice here, he used the contracted form, does not, doesn't. Repeat after me, doesn't. Now let's talk about quit and give up, because they can be interchangeable, but they can also have different meanings. It depends on context. Quit means to leave a position, such as your job, or to stop something permanently, such as learning English. So in terms of a position, you may know that Joe Biden quit the presidential race. He left it permanently. Now, if you've had enough of your boss and working overtime without pay, you can say, I quit. You're permanently leaving that position. Now, give up means that you surrender, you lose hope. So you stop doing something, you quit because you surrender or lose hope. So you could say, I've been trying to improve my listening skills for years. I give up. So in this case, it means you're no longer going to try. You've just lost all hope that it's possible for you. You could also say, I've been trying to improve my listening skills for years. Maybe I should just quit. You could continue on and specify the something. I should just quit learning English. But if it's implied and obvious, you don't need to say it. Your friend could respond back, or I would respond back and say, don't quit, don't give up. So here, although different vocabulary, it means the same thing. Keep going. Don't quit, don't give up. You just need to subscribe to JForrest English, so make sure you subscribe. Now let's talk about I respect that. What does that represent here? I respect Hillary's determination, her persistence. Those are the adjectives we can use to describe someone who doesn't quit, who doesn't give up. Those are the nouns we can use to describe the fact that she doesn't quit, she doesn't give up. Hillary's determination, she is determined. Hillary's persistence, she is persistent. You could say she keeps going despite setbacks. Or you could say she keeps going despite facing challenges, because you can use despite with a noun or a gerund. And setbacks and challenges, they represent the same thing. Now let's talk about I tell it like it is. This is a colloquial way of saying I'm being straightforward, I'm being honest, I'm being direct. This is often used before offering an area of improvement in a direct, perhaps harsh way. So I could say to you, your accent needs improving. I'm sorry, but I tell it like it is. I'm being 100% honest, direct, even if it might hurt your feelings. There's another word to describe this, which is to be blunt. So when you're blunt, it means you're very honest, even if it might offend someone or hurt someone's feelings. To be blunt, your accent needs improving. So you can use to be blunt at the very beginning, and then you offer critical feedback. So let's summarize Trump's advice. Don't quit, don't give up. What do you think about that? If you agree, if you're not going to quit or give up, then put let's go in the comments. Now let's move on and listen to Oprah Winfrey's commencement speech at Harvard. Here's the sentence. You need to complete the missing words. You'll hear it 3 times.
There is no such thing as failure. Failure is just life trying to move us in another direction. There is no such thing as failure. Failure is just life trying to move us in another direction. There is no such thing as failure. Failure is just life trying to move us in another direction.
Did you get this one? She said, there is no such thing as failure. Failure is just life trying to move us in another direction. We can form a contraction between there is and say theirs. Repeat after me, theirs, theirs. There's no such thing as. This means something doesn't exist or something isn't real. So said another way, failure doesn't exist. Using that contraction, does not. Failure doesn't exist. Failure isn't, is not. Failure isn't real. There's no such thing as perfect English. This is something I commonly say to my students. Said another way, perfect English doesn't exist. So don't worry about making mistakes. Native speakers make them too. Next, failure is just life trying to move us in another direction. So notice here, failure is, you could form a contraction, especially in spoken English, and say failures. Failures just life. Now, native speakers commonly link our sounds together. So you could see this with move us in. It may sound like one word, move us in, move us in. Repeat after me, move us in. Now, move us in another direction. There's a very common expression to go in another direction. And this means to change your approach or plan. For example, I was going to enroll in a language school, but I went in another direction. I changed my plan, I changed my approach. And I subscribed to JForrest English. So let's summarize Oprah's advice. Failure doesn't exist. Do you agree with that? If you do, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. Wow, you'll definitely sound like an American speaker when you use everything you just learned. Now let's do something fun. I'm going to quiz you on your knowledge of American culture. Question 1, what would an American English speaker call this? Do you know? Any ideas? We call it a Band-Aid. So if I'm at your house and I cut my finger, I would ask you, do you have any Band-Aids? Now this is a bandage, but American speakers always call it a Band-Aid because that's the brand name. The most common bandages are by the brand Band-Aid, so we just call it a Band-Aid. Question 2, a related question. And make sure you're keeping track of your score, and you can share your score at the end. Question 2, related question. What is a Band-Aid fix? Speaking of Band-Aids, what is a Band-Aid fix? Any ideas? A Band-Aid fix is a temporary solution to a problem. This is an idiom in English that uses the word Band-Aid.
Tried putting Band-Aids on it, but
I could say filling the potholes is a Band-Aid fix. The entire road needs to be repaved, which would be the permanent solution, and filling the potholes is the temporary solution, and that's why it's a Band-Aid fix. And I hope my videos help you permanently improve your English so they're not a Band-Aid fix. So put no Band-Aids, put no Band-Aids in the comments.
But it's just a Band-Aid fix.
Question 3, what would an American English speaker call this? Do you know? Any ideas? I would call it a Kleenex. Kleenex. For example, can you pass me a Kleenex? Now these are tissues, but again, the brand name is Kleenex, which is why Americans just call it Kleenex.
I need a Kleenex.
And keep in mind, we do this even if we don't use the brand Kleenex or the brand Band-Aid, we still just call it the brand names. Native speakers don't use brand names for many things, but Band-Aid, Kleenex, also Q-tips, which are technically cotton swabs. I've never called it a cotton swab, always Q-tip. Also chapstick, which is technically lip balm, but the brand is chapstick. And Tupperware, which is the brand, and it is plastic storage containers. The brand is Tupperware. So these are the main ones where Native American English speakers just use the brand name. Question 4, this is a fun one. I'm an American at a baseball game. What am I most likely eating? What am I most likely eating? What do you think? Put it in the comments. I'm eating a hot dog. That's right. Baseball and hot dogs are synonymous. Now there are other options, but I'm most likely eating a hot dog. And if you asked this question to 10 Americans, I'm pretty sure all 10 would choose hot dog. But other common food items maybe you said are peanuts, popcorn, pretzels, or nachos. But again, most likely I'm eating a hot dog. Question 5, another fun question. What does the tooth fairy do? American traditions. What does the tooth fairy do? Any ideas? The tooth fairy takes your tooth from under your pillow and leaves you money money in return. This is, of course, for little kids when they lose their baby teeth. They take that tooth, they put it under their pillow, and they're so excited because when they wake up in the morning, the tooth fairy has left them money. And of course, the mom and dad are tooth fairy, but the little kids, they believe in tooth fairies until of course they grow up and realize it was their mom and dad leaving them money. Does that tradition exist in your culture, or does that sound super weird to you? The idea of putting your tooth that fell out of your mouth under your pillow and then waking up in the morning and getting money. Does that sound weird? Because traditions can definitely sound weird if they're not part of your culture. But of course, to me, that sounds totally normal, and it was a part of my childhood. So what's your score so far? Let's move on. Question 6. If I ask you to complete a task, what two words should you use to accept that task? Any ideas? Let me give you a hint. Will you do me a favor and subscribe to my channel, like this video, and share it with your friends? And to accept this task, 2 words. What can you say? Will do. Will do. Will do, Jennifer. Will do ASAP, as soon as possible. You can do it right now. Just click subscribe and like. Or if you want to sound super American and very confident, you can reply back with 1 word and say done. Done. Because you're expressing it as if you have already done it. So you're putting it in the past tense to show how confident you are that you accept and will do this task. But remember those 2 words, will do. Question 7. If I'm starting to get angry because I'm hungry, I'm hangry. You knew this one, right? I've taught this to my students in many different videos and shorts as well. I'm hangry, which is a combination of hungry and angry.
Someone's hangry.
I'm not hangry, Tito.
Question 8, another culture and traditions question. What do Americans most commonly eat on Thanksgiving? Do you know? Of course, it's turkey. Turkey is synonymous with Thanksgiving. In fact, a lot of people call it Turkey Day. If you Google Turkey Day, it will tell you the date of Thanksgiving. Question 9, what does let's Uber it? Let's Uber it. What does let's Uber it mean? Any ideas? This means let's take an Uber. So notice how I'm turning Uber, which is a noun. If you're not sure, Uber is an alternative to a taxi. I'm taking Uber, the noun, and I'm using it as a verb. Native speakers love using nouns as verbs. So instead of saying, I sent you an email, a native speaker will say, I emailed you. So using email as the verb. I'll call you on WhatsApp later. WhatsApp is the noun. I'll WhatsApp you. Using WhatsApp as a verb. Native speakers, we love doing this. But we only do it in specific situations with specific nouns. So for now, just use the 3 I taught you. And finally, question 10. How are you doing with this test? Question 10. If I answer, it's going great. What question was I asked? It's going great. What's the question? The question is, how's it going? How's it going? Great. Going great? It's going great. Those are the 3 different ways you could answer. And of course, instead of great, you can choose whatever adjective you'd like. So, how American is your English? Share your score in the comments. And even if you got 0, I hope you had fun and learned a lot about American traditions, culture, and vocabulary. Do you want me to make more lessons like this? If you do, put more in the comments below. And of course, make sure you like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. Of course, you're going to say those 2 words, will do, Jennifer, or done, done, which means you've already done it. And you